My Valiant Purpose is our first official Steam game, and you can wishlist it now. My name is Shane Curry, and I've been an animator on American Dad for many years, but I also make my own cartoons and games. But this is our first official playable story with narration and voice acting, starring Chew and Gum. This is the first Chew Gum story that you can add to your Steam library. At least you'll be able to once it's released. Right now, I need help. A lot of help. Not really. I'm pretty happy with everything, but it would be nice to get outside perspective from people who have more experience than me. There's little things, little quirks in this game engine where I've had to work around them instead of solving those issues. And even though I've made a ton of progress, all of the cutscenes and the dialogue is all there. The level layout isn't designed yet, but all the triggers for all the events to occur are happening in this little world. And I wanted to go over just a couple of the things that I'm struggling with. First, I'll just play the intro. I've muted all the audio and the music, so there's not going to be any spoilers apart from the actual seeing. Oh, shoot. Apart from seeing the gameplay. But the meat of this is really, truly in the story and the narration and the dialogue. The gameplay and the mechanics are serving all of that. You can see the world here. One of the things that I kind of struggled with for a while was the camera. I think you can see things are a little jittery in the beginning here, and I don't know if that's because things are still loading or if it's because it's in windowed mode. I haven't compiled it yet. I haven't done like an EXE test. So I don't know if that's permanent, but I do know that Godot 4.2 is having some issues with windowed versus full screen on PC. But I finally figured out the remote tracker 2D node in order to kind of turn the camera off and on for cutscenes like this one here. Like, technically speaking, dialogue is occurring. They're talking back and forth. Only his mouth is animating, but that's because of the sprite sheet that's loaded for him. There's things going on right now. But I have little barriers set up below here so that you can't fall during cutscenes like this. But one thing I'm not a huge fan of is when the camera recovers after the cutscene ends. I have it panning to the left, but then I also have the position of the remote tracker 2D updating. And enabling both of those simultaneously, instead of creating something smooth, it creates like a little loop. And depending on where you are on the screen, that either looks smooth or it looks a little like goop, like you just saw there. And it's not the end of the world. I'm going to close this. It's not the end of the world, but that's as smooth as I've been able to get it. And part of that, well, it's not entirely true. I've been able to get it a little bit smoother by either lowering this position smoothing, but I'm not a fan of this at all. I really don't like this. I think 18 pixels per second is the tightest that, or the slowest that I'm okay with. And the odd thing is that I cannot seem to change the speed of the position smoothing in the animation player and have it stick. The animation player has been throwing me a lot of loops. It's been very frustrating. One of those things is just the actual position smoothing. I don't know if it's possible to lerp from the camera's current position to the position it will be at the moment the remote 2D transform 2D node is changing its update position from false to true. I just don't know, because I don't know how you would grab wherever the camera is and delay, even this is true, lerping it once and then getting rid of that lerp function. Unless you make it like a function with like some booleans attached to it so that it only runs once, then after that it goes back to just purely transforming. I don't know, but if anybody has like a simple solution, let me know. I'm not totally unhappy with how it works right now. It's not the end of the world, but it would be cool to know if there's like a slightly better way to do that. One of the other frustrating things that I've noticed is that you can't run multiple functions in, let me show you this script. So I have this script on the animate, like essentially what it does is it takes all the animation players and turns what some of them need to be singular functions that trigger at different cutscenes. And the reason the dialogue is split up like this with play QQ is largely for animation purposes, so that things can happen at 3A and then start happening further at 3B at the start of the playhead. It's just a way for me to organize things. And when I get into the animation phase of actually doing lip sync and expression changes for the characters, it's going to be very important for me to kind of block those out. But one weird issue I've noticed is that if I call this function and I have some camera like losing control, then regaining control in this animation, it won't give me back control during this playback or this one. It's like, even though the methods are being called in the animation player, they're just refusing to give camera control back through the duration of everything that's queued within this function. I don't know if that's because it's a function and because it's like I've grouped it together this way, but I ended up having to just create two parallel animation players, one controlling the intro music and the actual animation, and then the other controlling the voiceover and narration. And they just happen simultaneously. Speaking of animation player frustrations, can somebody tell me if there is a way to preview what your camera is doing in the animation player? If I want to frame a cutscene, why can't I see where the camera is framed in a way, the way it'll be when you hit play? I've been doing everything through the guess and check method I'm animating what I think will look good and then hitting play and running through the entire intro and being like, oh no, it looks like I need to nudge it, running through the entire intro. I'm doing that with truck outs and with pans. Luckily, it's a huge majority of my job professionally is truck outs and pans and getting them right down to the frame. So when I guessed at something, I'm usually already 80% of the way there. So it's not a huge deal. And there's not a lot of camera movements in this beyond the intro. But there's got to be a way to scrub through what you've keyframed. Why can't you see the keyframes of animation for the sprite while you're scrubbing through the timeline? You can sort of see an outline for the camera, but that does nothing. You can scrub through and see position, translation, but that who cares? That's not useful because it doesn't sync up with the frame changes here. Because these aren't being updated, there's no way to know if that position is correct or accurate. You're just guessing. It's incredibly frustrating. And I don't understand. The other thing I don't understand is why, if somebody could help me with this, just audio playback. This audio file will play if I start it at the top of the playhead. But if I scrub, there's no audio scrubbing, which, fine, it's a game engine. But if somebody has created a plugin or something for audio scrubbing, please let me know. But if I move the playhead and I hit play, it's silence, muted. The audio isn't cached. You can't hear anything. That's incredibly frustrating for dialogue. I'm not going to have, because of the way my dialogue typically is, there's a lot of back and forth. It's very quick. And it's already edited in a DAW and the performance is cut together the way I want it. I'm not going to export or import 100 OGG files, 100 little Oggy doggies, and then stack them and edit them the way I want to for overlapping dialogue just to be able to hear them back in the animation player. That's crazy. But if somebody has a way to just be able to play audio from here, from any position, and actually hear the audio, if it's something stupid, please let me know. Please. But apart from controlling the camera and the dialogue in the animation player, there's a couple other things that I've been struggling with. Not struggling. I'm happy with the end result, but there's some performance questions I have about my workaround towards things that, I want to know if I'm setting myself up for failure, not necessarily in this game, but in the future. I've just started finally using the profiler for looking for bottlenecks and things like that. But it's very mysterious and sort of, I don't know. I haven't quite worked out what I'm going to be doing with that yet. But the only other thing, some of that stuff I'm just going to have to save for a future video because I didn't want this to be too long. I just wanted to announce that, the game is 90, like the dialogue is recorded, all the cutscenes are laid out, the animation is almost there. This is not the way that the level is going to be designed. I'm going to be redesigning the level, but I'm like 90% of the way there. Now I say that knowing that the last 10% is going to be 50% of the true work, but I would not feel comfortable putting this on Steam and having a Steam page up if I hadn't made this much progress already. Like this was the point where I was like, okay, like it's going to be a game. I know how to finish it. I know what it is and what it'll be like and how I'm going to finish it. But there's lots of little things where, I want to make a few different videos going over stuff that I'm like, I'm happy, but if there was a better way and somebody knows, I'd like to see it. The big one in this episode is just the animation player and scrubbing. Boy, that would be amazing if somebody knew a solution to that. In the next episode, I want to talk about parallax stuff, and I also want to talk about preloading and instancing stuff and whether or not it's really worth it, and tile set limitations, because I've set it up to where I can preload and instantiate chunks of the tree, but I don't know if it's necessary if I'm wasting my own time. But anyway, the future videos, for now, this is just sort of a high. I'm going to start making devlog videos more frequently as I get closer to finishing the game, or at least finishing an alpha version of the game, ready for, well, maybe more beta, just for testing, for people to test out and give feedback on. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. I'm very happy with the story, very happy with the structure of the game, very happy with the mechanics. And I'll keep giving updates as we get closer to announcing a launch date. Also, we have a radio play, a weekly podcast that's going to be launching before the game, but it's going to be starring Chew and Gum in multiple roles. You can actually listen to it on Spotify now. You can hear the trailer for the first episode. And if you subscribe to our Patreon for $2, you can hear the pilot episode, which is a 6-minute episode 0 version. It's a story. They're also going to be self-contained stories based on fairy tales from around the world. But they're all going to tie into the games that we're creating, particularly this first one. This is the one that launches everything. But I'm excited. I'm very happy. Things are finally coming together after the Kickstarter campaign from last summer. Finally in a new phase of life. And I'm very excited for this next step in the journey. And I'll talk to you later.